In the last chapter, we studied about Clojure syntax. In this chapter, I'll try to convince you that Clojure does not have a syntax. I know it sounds a little odd, but please bear with me for a few minutes and things will make sense. Consider this simple JavaScript if condition. The keywords if and else and the curly brackets have to be in specific positions for this code to execute properly. This constitutes the syntax of the language. The same condition in Clojure can be written as follows. On the surface, the two might look similar, but there are many underlying differences. In JavaScript, the positioning of the keywords if and else and the curly brackets are a part of the syntax. Other operations like defining a function, defining a try-catch block, defining a variable will have a different syntax in JavaScript. But in Clojure, if is just a function call, and so is every other operation you can perform. The only rule that you need to keep in mind is that a list starts with parentheses and the first element of the list is an operation and all other elements are the arguments to that operation. In that sense, Clojure is way more expressive than a C family language. We can rewrite the if conditional in Clojure as follows. Notice how we moved the function if inside the print function. Now you might be wondering that you can do the same thing in JavaScript using the ternary operator. That's a great observation, but we'd like to point out that the ternary operator is an additional piece of syntax. With Clojure, it was just a function call, but ternary operator is an escape hook. It is not as extensible as composing functions would be. If JavaScript was as expressive as Clojure, then something like this would have been possible, but it is not. The keywords if and else only work in certain positions. You can't compose them freely. Clojure functions can be nested at multiple levels, and as long as your code is a valid list, there is no other syntactical rule that you need to follow. Hence, syntaxlessness. Clojure gives you the power to tap into existing ecosystems, but to wield that power, we need a build tool. There are many build tools available, and we'll walk through the famous ones, understanding their pros and cons. The oldest and probably the most mature is Line or Line in short. It helps you manage dependencies and project-specific tasks similar to NPM scripts. It is particularly suited to JVM dependencies, but can also be modified to work with JavaScript dependencies from the CLJS repo. Line has built-in support to package your app into jar files or JavaScript files, and it can also run a REPL for you. The only downside is that Line runs one JVM process for every application. If you have a large project with multiple sub-applications, you'll have to run one JVM instance to run each application. Boot is similar to Line in scope with the added advantage that it only runs one JVM for multiple applications. With Boot, you might have 15 applications running, but only one instance of the JVM will be used. Boot configuration is more verbose than Line, and some people prefer it because of that. The official solution to manage dependencies is deps CLI. It is not as mature or as old as Boot or Line, but it is the recommended way going forward. It is focused on managing JVM dependencies, but can also be used with JavaScript. Unlike Line or Boot, deps CLI is more of a do-it-yourself solution. Deps CLI give you the ability to pick your components and mix and match them as you see fit. The CLJ command that we have been using so far is a part of deps CLI. Line, Boot, and deps are more focused on the JVM aspect of Clojure, but Shadow CLJS is optimized for JavaScript. Shadow lets you seamlessly interop with NPM packages. You can yarn install any package from NPM as you would in a JavaScript project and import it in your Clojure code. Just like Line, Shadow also helps you package your application and run a REPL, and along with that, it also has some JavaScript-specific development tools that help with hot module reloading, code splitting, and dynamic imports. There also exists an extension for Line called Figwheel that adapts Line Engine for JavaScript development. It introduces features like hot module reloading, code splitting, and a few other things to Line Engine. Although there are many build tools to choose from depending on the runtime you want to target, the basic principles remain the same. If you get a hang of one build tool, you can easily use all others. On the JVM side, you cannot go wrong with either of the three options, but on JavaScript side, we recommend that you use Shadow.